Good to go.
Clerk, we are reporting out of closed session. We have one item. First item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion for the item reporting out of closed session is to receive the report and that confidential direction to staff be confirmed.
Someone like to move that? Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Kim. Comments, questions? Seeing none, recorded vote.
Recorded vote has been requested for the first item of council, or excuse me, the only item of council reporting out of closed session. Councillor Gardner, how do you vote? Councillor Gardner votes no. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Thompson votes yes. Mayor Mrakas?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gallo votes no. Councillor Weiss? Councillor Weiss votes no. Councillor Kim? Councillor Kim votes yes. And Councillor Gilliland? Councillor Gilliland votes yes. Motion carries 4-3.
Thank you. Confirm the bylaw. Councillor Gardner, Councillor Thompson, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gallo, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Clerk, time is 7:03. I'm going to call this council meeting to order. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. Shared understanding of the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Council, I ask for a motion to approve the agenda. We do have one additional delegation for tonight. Councillor Weiss, Councillor Gillen, need 2/3. Any questions, comments? Call the vote. Yeah. Councillor Gardner? Councillor Gardner is yes. Councillor Gillen? Councillor Gillen is yes. That carries. Next, we have community present. Oh, declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Community presentations. We have one, Brian North, Kelly Broome, Southlake Foundation regarding 2024 Nature's Emporium Run for Southlake. I don't see Kelly here, but I see Mr. North. Mr. North, come on up. Welcome. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Mayor Mrakas, councillors and staff, my name is Brian North, and I'm here on behalf of the organizing committee and staff at the Southlake Foundation to once again invite you to join Nature's Emporium 5K Run for Southlake. This year's Southlake celebrates the 100th anniversary. And on Sunday, April the 28th, we will again be lacing up our shoes in Newmarket to run or walk along Davis Drive to raise funds for our hospital. Your participation in fundraising will impact leading-edge healthcare close to home, such as patient care, tools, equipment, renovations, and upgrades, which directly impact patients. Southlake is vital to Aurora. Our go-to hospital is where our friends, families, neighbors, and community members go when there's a medical emergency. The Mayor's Challenge each year is a way that the N6 councils can have a friendly rivalry while supporting a worthy cause that impacts 100% of our citizens in one way or another, whether it be a friend, a family member, or even ourselves. Mayor Mrakas, congratulations for rallying the council and staff by again winning the Mayor's Challenge last year. That's now 5 years running. As both a citizen of Aurora and a member of the organizing committee, I am very proud of your continued support of the hospital. Thank you. That being said, as a committee member, nothing would make me happier if all N6 mayors and councils worked to outperform you. Not to take away from your effort, but to take our fundraising to new heights, making more of an impact on our fundraising goals. The Community Spirit Award won last year by the town of Newmarket helps to challenge all communities to engage both council and citizens. The more fundraising participants, the more opportunity to run and raise important funds. As we all know, our communities are growing and Southlake continues to look to the future to ensure we continue to meet the needs of our community. And you, as our community leaders, know we can't do this alone. Please join us on Davis Drive on Sunday, April 28th for this year's Nature Emporium Run for Southlake fundraising event. Thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing all of you in April and promise to be there at the finish line to thank you and cheer you on as you make an impact to our great Southlake Hospital. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. North. Councilor Kay, I have a motion to receive the presentation. Councilor Thompson, Councilor Gardner, any questions for the presentation? Presenter? Councilor Gardner?
I'll just take the liberty as always to thank you for coming before council. We should count the number of times you've been here, Brian. And to
You're not as chair, but as a member of the committee.
I'm going to guess you've been here. Oh, well, maybe this is the first time this year. But in the past year, I'm going to guess 5. But thank you very much for your work.
Any other questions? Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. Thank you, Brian, to all the work you and everyone else on the committee does to organize this race. But perhaps you could just speak a little more detail why it's so important to raise funds for the hospital.
It's very important. The government does pay for hospitals as a building and for a lot of the staffing, but the equipment that goes in the hospital, the funds have to be raised by the community. They put a new lap, I'm going to say the wrong thing, a CAT scan in the, and I apologize, I'm saying the wrong thing, in the cancer center, which is really state of the art. You no longer have to go downtown Toronto to get scanned for cancer, and it's so precise. I mean, we have to raise those funds as a community. Equipment as little as bedpans have to be paid for by raised funds, and we really need to keep that hospital going. The emergency department is well exceeding what it was ever built for. The number of people that go through that place, unfortunately, I've had to be in there a couple of times in the last year, and it's standing room only, but they get us through, and the staff are amazing. We have to make sure we give them the right tools to get the job done. That's what 100% of these funds go to.
No, sir.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Brian. I had the good fortune to serve a short time on the committee as well. And I echo that sentiment that, while the government may pay for the operation of the hospital, there is so much need for the repair and the replacement of existing equipment, as well as, new technology that comes to the forefront. We all are amazed at the work that Southlake has been able to do, but we need to continue to step up and ensure that we have one of the best hospitals in York Region.
Councilor Gilliland?
Thank you. Through to Mr. North. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done, and the committee, and obviously the community as well. And yeah, it does really shoulder the shortfalls on the communities. And I feel that you and everybody has done an outstanding job. Hopefully our federal government will actually give us a little more health transfers so we can help with the influx of population and in our region, because we know we do need the extra equity and the cash flow going to support and sustain all the density and population growth that we have. Question about the participation. If you could be so kind to let me know or just publicize what that link is where people can go to sign up and register, and whether or not it could be a run or a walk. If you could just say that out loud for the record, that'd be great.
I didn't bring it's actually on I didn't bring the piece of paper. The Southlake Run, you go to that that site and you can register. Already we have 190 registered participants, which is amazing. This time last year, we didn't have near that. We've already got many teams already registered. But yeah, go to the Southlake Run and website, and we'll see you and your daughter running again. Do remember seeing you running across the finish line with your daughter. So
Yes, we probably will be doing that again. And just so everybody knows that you can register as an individual or a team. You do not have to run the whole thing. You can elect to walk. Make it a fun day with your family, your friends, or a girls' day, whatever it is. And I just think it's a very meaningful experience to have with family, knowing you're doing good for the community. So I'll be advocating for that as well. Thanks.
the run started in Aurora as well. And it was always our plan to move it up in front of the hospital. And that's where it's been the last few years. But it actually started in Aurora.
That's great. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to thank you again, Brian, for the great work and your leadership each and every year that you come out and lead the charge for Run for Southlake. My question to you is, we raised, or the region raised quite a bit, and this year's goal is quite lofty at 500,000. And you know what? Unless you set high targets, you're not going to get it. So can you give us some snippets as to how you intend to get to 500,000?
So I've been an advocate for the run for many years to make it a fundraiser. We had, well, one year we had 1,800 people on the street. Only 27% raised funds. They participate, and we're not there to run an event for the community. We're there to raise funds for the community. So I've been advocating that we all raise. If you register, you raise money. The registration strictly goes to the cost of running the run. We got to close the streets. We got to get the policing. You get your T-shirt. There's a lot of work goes into it ahead of time. So what we've tried to do, and we're really pushing hard to do, is get $100 from everybody this year. Raise $100 in funds. It's the 100th anniversary of the hospital being on Davis Drive, and we got everybody to give $100. That would help us raise a lot of funds.
No, sir.
Great, thank you. And just as an aside, when Councillor Gardner mentioned you probably delegated more than anybody else, I'd like to put in a notice of motion just to figure out whether that's true. It kind of reminds me about, I think Alec Baldwin and Steve Martin has the most appearances on Saturday Night Live. And I know it's not the best comparison, but sometimes people have called us kind of council chambers laughable as well. So,
well, I've been lucky to serve on many committees around the community and also with the town of Aurora. So I feel fortunate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Gardner, second time, unless someone wants to go for first. Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
So with respect to the money that it goes to support running, just being able to have the race. But if you donate money to somebody who's running, I'm assuming 100% of that goes.
Yeah.
So you don't have to run, but you can support someone who's running.
You can support somebody if you don't want to run. Absolutely. Absolutely. And as a counselor, I mean, it's your community. Come and cheer them on. If you can't physically run or walk, come and cheer them on. Get a team, cheer your team on. Cheer your citizens on. A lot of citizens from Aurora participate, as you know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Reese.
Thanks, Brian. The question I have has to do with this being involved as families, because my 5-year-old grandson said that he wanted to walk in it. So you're encouraging families to get together and be a part of this whole fundraiser, correct? It's not just adults, it's kids and families and everyone else.
When we were in Aurora, we had a mini mile for the kids to try and get them enthused about it. Unfortunately, the location we're in right now doesn't warrant it, because you get 3-year-old kids running and laying on the ground, and we don't have a grass area to do that. But the kids, we want them to get involved. We want them to know what the hospital's about. And yes, we definitely encourage families to get involved. Thank you.
Great. Councillor. Any other comments or questions? And then, Mr. North, thank you very much for coming this evening. And thank you for everything that you do, and as well as all the volunteers. The run wouldn't be what it is without everyone pitching in and doing incredible work. I think everybody knows that Southlake it might be located in Newmarket, but it's our hospital. It serves our entire community, and we need to do what we can to make sure that that hospital is the best hospital. And I think it is. And I think a lot of places are jealous about the fact that what our communities combined do to support Southlake. And just lastly, I'll throw that challenge out to every mayor, all my colleagues, and let them know it's time that one of them steps up and takes a run and takes this cup away from us. We'll still do what we need to do and make sure we're at a high amount, but they need to step up. And I'm putting that challenge out for them. Absolutely, you don't have to worry about that. We'll be right where we always are. But I'm expecting them to come with a little bit more this time. So
Thank you.
I look forward to it, and I'm expecting to see Councillor Kim beat us all again in that run. Sub 23. Okay, we'll see. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Call the vote. Councillor Kim. That carries. So next, we have delegations. First up, we have Mr. Hartman, resident, regarding Twin Town Delegation 2024. Mr. Hartman, welcome. You have 5 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Before I actually begin my 5 minutes, I want to applaud this council for the leadership you possess around philanthropy, not only for Southlake, but Capes for Kids and other endeavors. I spent 35 years in philanthropy, 2/3 in healthcare. And to have this council stand up and put literally their money where their mouth is important. Philanthropy is the fabric, one of the values of any good, strong community. My name is John Hartman. I've been a resident for this town for over 23 years. I live on Wells Street. I'm here to share my views on the proposed twinning town visit to Leksand, Sweden. When I studied the staff report PDS 24007, I was reminded of the highway sign about our twin city. Periodically, I've tried to figure out what in fact we might have in common, if any. I also wonder why we haven't been there since 1994. I struggle with embracing the benefits of a delegation of up to 5 people, the mayor and some combination of councillors and staff. We started twinning based on trendy ideas of hockey events and exchanges in the mid-70s and have held very few other events since then. So what have we gained from real and practical terms since our last visit in 1994? I truly struggled to find anything in the staff report or any of the documentation. I admit, and based on my research, not 700 pages as presented last week, we do share some things in common. For example, Leksand is famous for hockey. We've got the Tigers. We're both kind of a small town based on registered census in 2020. Leksand's population is 6,402 people, or about 10% of Aurora's population. Also in common with Leksand, we have snow. And finally, their picture on the internet showed a really nice Christmas tree in their square. We have a nice one in our town park as well. Sarcasm? Maybe a bit. And yet my real question is, what is the practical value of visit when we've done extraordinarily little in the past 30 years? Sweden's decision-making and form of government is dramatically different than what we have here in Canada. How Sweden approaches, adopts, and embraces innovation is very different. They are known for revolutionary designs by IKEA, Volvo, Spotify, and yes, even those of age, ABBA. Admittedly, they're global leaders in sustainability and environmental protection, but those are on a national scale, not on a local scale like Aurora. Given our last visit was 30 years ago, as documented in the report, there must be other towns that are more aligned to where we could learn here in Canada or North America. Why would we consider sending an elected official who may or may not be with us in 3 years? Don't staff help create, drive, manage, and operationalize our programs? The adoptions of strategies and benefits in PDS 24007 are very vague at best. Yes, I'm aware that Leksand will not be the only place that might be visited, but we have nothing to show from the past. lofty suggestions, and I quote from the report, on exchanging views and best practices on managing economic growth, environmental changes, and gaining insights into sustainable growth. Really? The cost of up to $7,000 per delegate, or $35,000, the report does indicate that the mayor's expenses would be covered. So we're talking about $28,000 of an investment. Last time I checked, last week, flights alone were $3,200 to $4,500 each. Add on meals, transportations, communications, and you get the picture. And the costs do not include those losses being away from town work for any of our delegates. Sending 5 people away for a week seems rather frivolous. Dare I say boondoggle? There must be another town in Canada or North America that we can align tangible benefits and learnings that are more meet our needs and our expectations that taxpayers expect. Going once every 30 years is not adopting or learning. It would be different if we documented exchanges and evidence that we could point to the benefits of this twinning, outside of course, hockey, snow, and trees. Can't we use the fund better for comparative research and benefits for Aurora? Could we use the funds for adding more bleachers in town parks for concerts, creating improved traffic calming features on Old Yonge, or accelerating the legal actions against the cannabis grow-op lease on Edward Street? In a very non-sanctioned poll of residents, dart players, and weird phone calls from the deceased, no one supported this triple allocation of money. No one. Let me be clear. I am not against learning from the best or true innovation or comparative model. As a matter of fact, it's something I embrace. I spent 35 years building out some of the best-in-class fundraising endeavors and models by sharing and stealing from others. Yet surely you cannot tell me that Aurora is unable to find a more aligned example of our needs versus one from 30 years ago. In conclusion, I do hope this council rethinks its position and use of our money and votes against this trip along the same practical terms as you did last week for St. John's. Thank you, council.
Thank you. Council, can I get a motion to receive and refer? Councilor Thompson, Councilor Kim, any comments or questions for the delegate? Councilor Gilliland.
Just want to thank you, Mr. Hartman, for coming up here and expressing your views. You've certainly done a lot of research, so I applaud you for that.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Hartman, for delegating. And I can't disagree with you. And from my understanding, unless I read the report wrong, any counselor that does go will be out of pocket. So it will not be taxpayers that'll be paying that. At least that's to my understanding.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Mr. Hartman, thank you very much for coming. Call the vote. That carries. So next delegation, we'll go to Alison Hughes regarding Dear Everybody commitment. Alison, welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for giving me a few minutes. Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank the town of Aurora on behalf of Home Bloodview Foundation for motioning to sign our Dear Everybody agreement and committing to disability inclusion. We're proud of our over 100 partners who have made this commitment, not only to our kids and families at Home Bloodview, but to our communities. We believe in inclusion everywhere, and we're grateful that you have brought this forward today.
Thank you, Alison. Council, can I get a motion to receive and refer? Councilor Thompson, Councilor Weiss, any comments or questions for the delegate? Councilor Weiss.
Alison, I just want to thank you for coming here today and also for the invitation to go down to Bloor View. It's a wonderful facility, and we realize the importance of the things that you do, and just piggybacking a bit on both what Mr. North and Mr. Hartman said about philanthropy and the importance of giving. I think this is a really important thing, and I'm proud to be involved in it. So thanks for coming here for your delegation tonight.
Thank you, Councilor Weiss, and thank you for agreeing to lead our Capes for Kids team, which we'll be proud to launch and invite everybody across town to participate.
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you very much for reminding us all how important this is. I've been to Blue Review before it changed its name. So what was the reason for calling it Holland Blue Review now?
Alison.
So actually, we're celebrating 125 years this year, so happy to share the links to our history and our evolution. The latest name, which is Holland Blue Review Kids Rehabilitation Hospital, was in recognition from a transformational gift from Phil Holland and his family.
Thank you.
Councilor Kim.
Yeah, just wanted to thank you, Alison, for the many ways you participate in our town, most noticeably in the Accessibility Advisory Committee. And thank you for the kind invitation that unfortunately I wasn't able to attend at Blue Review. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And our doors are open to anyone to come back.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Alison, thank you very much for coming this evening. And as everyone mentioned, the tour was quite eye-opening, and I recommend that highly, that everyone should get out there and see what's going on. So thank you very much. Call the vote. That carries. Council, if there's no objections, I'm going to move the motion 10.1 forward. So Ms. Hughes doesn't have to wait till the end. If I don't see any objections, I'm going to move that forward. Okay. All right, so we'll go to 10.1, motion regarding Dear Everybody commitment. Would someone like to move that? Councilor Thompson, seconder. Councilor Gilliland, thank you. So I just wanted to say that I'm extremely proud that with this motion, the town of Aurora will once again be leaders and be the first municipality to take this step forward and sign the Dear Everybody agreement. This commitment emphasizes the importance of dissolving biases and barriers against individuals with disabilities in our community. And our partnership with Holland Blue Review is a testament to creating an inclusive and welcoming community for all individuals, irrespective of abilities, so that every resident feels welcome in our town. I hope it passes unanimously. I think it will. And I'm looking forward to this partnership. Any other comments or questions? Call a vote. Well, that carries unanimously. Council will move to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to move all items? Consent agenda? Oh, Councilor Gilliland.
I just wanted to pull 7.7.
You wanted to pull it for a vote?
Correct.
Okay. Can I get a motion for all items minus 7.7? Councilor Weiss, Councilor Gardner. Call the vote. That carries. $7.7. Councilor Gilliland, you pulled this one.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chair to Mr. Clerk. Looking through the minutes and understanding what was.
Councilor, can I get something on the floor first?
Well, I just don't agree with the minutes. So procedurally, I'm just trying to understand why there was no vote there to show the reconsideration that had occurred. And so I don't agree with the minutes as being presented. So I'm not so sure what motion I'm putting on the floor.
Counselor, I would suggest that we have to go into closed session for that. That's something that was discussed in closed session and wasn't discussed in open session.
Okay, that's fine. For me, it's just more about procedure. I'm not talking about what the topic of discussion, just more or less the procedural part. Is that something that we can't stipulate in open session? Is that not something it's a type of process, a procedure, not a foundational part of the topic itself?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did review the minutes. I can't get into it too much because of course it is a closed session item, but I did review the minutes this afternoon of the item in question, and they are correct. All the votes that happened are listed in the minutes.
Counselor?
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree because it's only reflecting one vote that it occurred. And I would assume that we should have two votes separated to be as concerned. It doesn't reveal anything within the meeting, but procedurally, I just don't think it's correct. So for me, I won't be voting in favor of these minutes because I don't consider them accurate.
Okay. Someone like to move it? Counselor Thompson, you want to move it? Seconder? Oh, Counselor Weiss, you want to speak?
Just what is the motion that we have?
Just
Before us?
we're just adopt the minutes.
Well, I think my comment on this is that I'd like this to be referred back to closed session
To
because
discuss what, Counselor? Exactly.
the
Counselor,
the
do we,
nature of the
and I agree, I understand what everyone's saying, but so are we gonna, everything that I'd love to do that because there's sometimes that some of you come out of there and you guys do the complete opposite out here.
Sure.
So if we want to start doing that, we're going to do it for every single vote. We're going to have 2 votes every single time. And we can do that. And I'd love to do that because I'd love the public to know because my vote stays the same every time.
Yeah, that's not the point. I understand that, but the point of this, that if there is a perceived something done erroneously, I think it just should be referred back to another closed session so we have a conversation about it and resolve it one way or the other. That's
Mr. Clerk, was anything done procedurally wrong?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not in my opinion, but it doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes or anything. The matter could be referred to the next closed session. We could put it on the agenda
That's fine.
if that is the will of council.
Well, I got Counselor Thompson moving this.
Yes, just to reiterate again, through you to our clerk, are these minutes accurate in your professional opinion?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in my professional opinion, yes, they are.
Fine. Whether somebody agrees with it or not, that's their opinion, but our clerk has ruled that they're accurate, so I support them.
Counselor Gardner?
I think I'm not questioning the accuracy of the minutes. I think the point was the process that we used. So that's a different thing. And with respect to changing a vote, I did that this evening. After thinking about it some more and speaking with Mr. Muno and some of the counselors. So I think that's okay. Thanks.
Got a mover. Anyone want a second? Ms. Reese. What's on the screen? I had a mover. I'm asking for a seconder. I know, but I had a mover first. I'm asking if I don't have a seconder, I'll go to Counselor Weiss. Is there a seconder to Counselor Thompson to move what's in front of us? No? Counselor Kemp, thank you. I'll call a vote. That's defeated. So we got no minutes. Items considering discussion. 9.1, multi-year communication strategic plan. They're just minutes, Counselor. They're just minutes.
Is there a necessity to approve
No.
them
They're just minutes.
through to Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I can't think of a set of minutes we don't have adopted. I would still prefer to put these on the next closed session agenda and get this sorted out to have them adopted by council.
And I'll put that motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor.
So it'd be, if I could, Mr. Mayor, to refer the minutes to the next February 20th closed session meeting agenda. And yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
Second. Councilor Gilliland? Call the vote. That carries. 9.1, multi-year communication. We have a presentation to be provided by Daniel Batoni, Special Projects Manager, Communications. Daniel, welcome. Floor is yours.
Okay. Just make sure this is the right height here. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. It's great to be back here at Council, and it's my pleasure to present to you the communications team's multi-year strategic plan. I'm going to be providing a very high-level overview, and at the end, I welcome any questions you may have, and of course, any feedback. I think I click which way. Okay. The strategic plan at its core highlights the communications team's overarching objectives, the specific strategies and tactics we'll use to reach these objectives, and the metrics we will use to track our progress over the next 3 years. The strategic plan is informed and supported by emerging trends in corporate communications, resident and stakeholder perspectives, and the demographics of Aurora. Another couple key points here. This plan was long overdue, as this is the first time in 5 years that the team has developed multi-year objectives. Council had actually requested back in 2021 that the team present them with a multi-year plan for 2022 to 2025, but that got derailed because of the pandemic. The delay was also partially a result of some turnover in the manager position on the communications team. This plan also reaffirms our commitment to utilizing the most effective and efficient communications tools, techniques, and best practices. This is also a living document designed to evolve and change as the needs of our community change. We need to be flexible. And lastly, we are going to update this plan every 3 years. So this slide shows our 7 core key objectives that will guide our communications activities over the next 3 years, informed heavily by the research we've done and what we heard from stakeholders. And even though many of these objectives can seem somewhat self-evident, like all strategic plans, it's important that we articulate clear objectives and ensure the entire team is on the same page on what we're trying to accomplish. Later on in the presentation, I will drill down further in detail on the specific strategies and some of the tactics we will employ to achieve these objectives. So as I alluded to in the executive summary, this plan was heavily informed by some solid research, and this includes emerging trends in corporate comms, the resident perspectives expressed in the resident satisfaction survey, as well as the resident and stakeholder perspectives we heard through a series of stakeholder listening sessions. I'm going to go into a little detail on each of those. So in addition to looking at how other public sector communication teams are operating, we also consulted some industry leading sources. And it's important to note that we even look beyond just emerging trends in communications, but also overall trends in people's attitudes towards government. That's where the Edelman Trust Barometer report, for example, was very useful. Other sources like the Reuters Technology and Trends Predictions and the Digital 2023 Global Overview report provide solid insights into how people are consuming information. So one of the most important trends that came to influence this plan is the idea of the erosion of trust, detailed in the Trust Barometer report that surveyed 32,000 respondents in 28 countries on their feelings towards government and their optimism about the future. You can see from the stats I have up here that people don't have a high degree of trust in government and government leaders, and this was exacerbated by the pandemic. Understanding these attitudes is vital to understand the context we're working in and helps inform the creation of our objectives. And somewhat related to the erosion of trust is the need for positivity, stemming from the idea that we've actually reached peak internet with people turning away from consuming news and other important information because the information being consumed is overly negative and leaving them feel powerless. Many online publishers see the remedy to this as creating more explanatory, solution-driven, and inspirational content. At the same time, as we saw in the Global Digital Report, the digital sphere is still dominating our lives, which is our third emerging trend, with Canadians spending an incredible amount of time online, over 6 hours per day, with 86% accessing content through their phone. And related to the use of mobile devices is the explosion of short-form vertical video, our fourth emerging trend. Almost every organization now is creating this type of content in one way or another. Other emerging trends we're seeing is the importance of upskilling communications professionals so that we have the right digital tools to sharpen our message. And lastly, we know that artificial intelligence is here. And while there are some ethical concerns, communications professionals must embrace it to remain competitive. These emerging trends, as you'll see, have helped inform many of the strategies and tactics that we'll use to achieve our 7 core objectives. The results of the resident satisfaction survey, specifically the communications preferences of respondents, also heavily informed the plan, including that nearly 55% of respondents say that they use the town's website to find information, and that over 50% said they prefer to receive information from the town over email. Our last key piece of research that informed this plan were our stakeholder listening sessions. And as a refresher, we held these sessions in April 2023 with the mayor, numerous councillors, all communications team members, and importantly, community members and representatives from community groups who provided their feedback on what we were doing well, and more importantly, what we needed to do better. The full plan that I've provided includes some of what we heard, and the strategic plan actually includes tactics that directly address many of the gaps identified by stakeholders. Lastly, in addition to research, our demographics have helped shape this plan. Demographic information like what I have up here on screen is important as it reveals that there are certain groups that we need to pay closer attention to. For instance, we have a larger seniors population than most towns, with our largest cohort actually being over 65. This means we must ensure we're putting the appropriate resources to connect with older residents. The full plan also includes some information on our social media audiences, which among other things shows that the largest cohort of our social media followers are women between the ages of 35 and 44. So now on to the actual plan and objectives. So I'm going to drill down a little bit further and briefly go through our 7 objectives again, and highlight some of the proposed actions, which are our actual work that we're going to be doing to reach each objective. So as a refresher, our first objective is to improve residents' interest and participation in town affairs. And we're going to reach this to reach this objective, we're going to employ the following strategies. And that includes ensuring community members understand how to stay informed and connected to what happens right here at Town Council, make information about planning and development more accessible, and increase opportunities for public engagement. And it's from these strategies that our tactics, like I've said, that will stem from our actual projects. For example, a public planning notice information plan and an Engage Aurora plan that outlines new topics and projects we're going to engage with the community on. Objective 2 is to strengthen the town's digital presence, and we'll achieve this by employing the following strategies. We'll make significant improvements to aurora.ca. We'll develop a better understanding of emerging social media channels and trends to create more impactful social media content, and we'll leverage the preferences of residents to receive information over email. And examples of our associated tactics with this objective include a website improvement plan, a revamped social media strategy, and an email marketing strategy. Objective 3 is to develop more impactful content that helps to better inform residents about key town programs and services. And we achieve this by creating new value-add content formats on issues that matter most to various audience members and that reflect emerging online trends. We're also going to leverage existing Aurora influencers and micro influencers and leverage new online advertising opportunities. And some of the associated tactics with this are developing a multi-channel content strategy, an influencer strategy, and a refresh of the Aurora Matter newsletter. Objective 4 is to support council and staff with clear, consistent, and accessible information. And we achieve this by employing the following strategies: increasing the amount of information and key messaging that's shared with council and staff, strengthen internal information sharing processes, and build organizational awareness about brand guidelines, and leverage technology. And some of the associated tactics here are a refresh of departmental and organization-wide key messages, development of a new corporate intranet site, and a refresh of the Inside Aurora newsletter. Objective 5 is to increase communications focus on inclusive two-way engagement, openness to feedback, and responsiveness. And we achieve this by increasing the way the town acknowledges various faith and cultural celebrations, provide more opportunities for the community to provide feedback, strengthen the communication team's relationship with Access Aurora to proactively respond to emerging issues, and connect with diverse community members through the information channels that they use. And some of the tactics are develop a robust DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion calendar, develop new two-way information sharing processes with Access Aurora, and update our crisis communications plan. We're almost there. Objective 6 is to increase the use of specific communications tools and tactics to better inform hard-to-reach community members. And we achieve this by employing the following strategies: identifying harder-to-reach groups and focus on using the communications channels that they more readily use to get out the town's message and ensure town messages are more visible in the community. Some of the associated tactics would be to develop a print marketing collateral plan for programs and initiatives to target specific groups of residents with a particular focus on seniors, develop a mobile signs plan that specifies how and when the communications team utilizes mobile signs as a tool. Lastly, our objective 7 is to strengthen the capabilities of the communications team, and we achieve this by leveraging individual strengths of team members, increasing professional development opportunities, leveraging data and industry-leading KPIs, and finding more opportunities to conduct audience research. And some associated tactics with this objective are creating an AI plan of action, an audience research plan, and the incorporation of the strategic plan into the objective key result framework. So while in the plan I sent you, there's some very specific KPIs or metrics associated with each objective. Broadly speaking, we have a number of key desired outcomes through the implementation of this plan. And this includes everything from a broad sentiment by Aurorans that they feel more informed and engaged with town affairs, to ensuring residents are aware of when council meetings are taking place and opportunities to delegate the key outcomes of council, and to ensuring the communications team is continually refining campaigns and tools based on data and insights. So that's a brief summary of the plan. And of course, we want to thank everyone who is involved and for providing feedback and including the feedback that we hope to receive right now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Council recommendations that report number CAO 24-001 be received, and 2, that council approve the multi-year strategic communications plan 2023 to 2026. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Mr. Thompson, seconder. Councilor Kim, any comments or questions to the report or to Mr. Petoni? Councilor Gardner.
I see you're back, Daniel. A couple of questions. So the strategy looks very good. You do say that it's going to be extra work for staff. Well, it's a very ambitious program. So how do you see that working out with staff? And it also says somewhere here that it's going to be within our current budget at the moment.
Daniel?
So through you, sorry.
Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Chair. A lot of what's in the plan is is building on communications channels that we're already using. It's actually setting, a lot. That's why you see a lot of the plan is actually creating different strategies. The strategy is to create more strategies, and we're not going to be spending months on these strategies. It's just so we're setting high level goals as a team and articulating very clearly, the different formats we're going to be using or the different products we're going to be creating. The idea is not to create a ton of work, additional work for the communications team. It's just to be more strategic.
Counselor?
Also, the report says that it's going to be additional work for staff.
All that part of the report,
You
but
wrote the report.
okay.
Also, I have heard so many comments about Aurora.ca, and I have made many myself. So it does, if I'm going to search something and come up with, it's not unusual to come up with 1,000, 2,000 or more options. So what are you going to do to fix this? To make it easier for people to find what they're looking for?
Counselor?
After you, Mr. American.
Daniel?
Lucky that we recently we brought on someone with a host of a lot of experience with websites. Prior to that, we actually didn't have someone with the skills to really make significant improvements to the website. And our search functionality will certainly be something we're looking at within our website improvement plan.
Counselor?
Okay, so when can I expect the website when can I expect personally to be happier with the website?
Through you,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Counselor, I invite you to come by the communications office, and we'd love to understand more of the kind of issues that you're talking about, and we can address them right away, or at least try to address them right away. It might be easier so we have a better understanding of the issues.
Counselor?
Well, I did mention one example of searching. How do you have an idea of how you'll be able to make it better for searching?
Counselor?
Through Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can definitely follow back up with you on that. Yeah.
Counselor?
Thank you. I'm sorry, my e-scribe timed out. Okay, I'll let somebody else speak until I get myself back online.
Counselor Gilliland?
Thank you. I agree with Councilor Gardner on the the search button. Even myself as a counselor, and I go into the search, I often find myself wondering, like, where is that? And only because I'm a counselor, I know where I can go and maybe find it in a different area that nobody would be able to see. And I'm glad to hear that we do have other staff that will be able to facilitate better search. So I am looking forward to that, because I do remember last term, when it was under revamped and there was this whole spider web kind of thing that we can all give feedback to. And I just personally did not really feel there was that much of an upgrade especially on the search side. So I can contribute to that. Through Mr. Chair to Daniel, you mentioned about the Objective 6 and the seniors and such, and you mentioned something about the print. And I'm just curious as to, well, let's put it this way. I would kind of put it in the same bucket as seniors or people with accessibility or disabilities. And if they wanted to have a print copy of some sort of communication, how would they even know that it was available to get, that there was something that was new? Because this is not something that we release in January and then they get a print copy. So I'm just curious as to how we're reaching those individuals. And I say this as an example. So for instance, with the windrow clearing project, I've had several people in their 70s, 80s, and even 90s contact me and say, I didn't know about it. And they would say, I don't even have email. So they're not on social media. So how would they even know to even receive print, to go to the town saying, oh, there must be something new. I better go get a flyer here. So I'm just curious as to like what it is you're going to do that's going to be different.
Daniel?
That's precisely what the plan is for, is to identify the different campaigns where having print marketing materials would be beneficial. And then I also identifying the places where we can put these print materials. For instance, we worked closely with the senior center to ensure that there were print collateral marketing materials for the Wintro program. We made sure there was print products at all of our community centers. So, short of that, there's not too much. If residents aren't online and they're not going out in the community, then it's really hard. But there is also the option of looking out mailers, for instance, on key town programs and initiatives, sending information directly to people's homes. So,
Counselor?
Thank you. Is there a way that the town could offer like an opt-in for mailers? So you as a senior could opt in anytime there's an event that's being announced to have a mail directly to them. I mean, obviously there's a cost associated, but you might not have a huge uptake of that many people, but you're capturing some people. It's like, yeah, I'd like to kind of know. It could be through the senior center. You could advertise it somehow, hopefully get an uptick somehow. But, over the years, hopefully people begin to know that, okay, I'd like to opt in for that. Obviously, we're moving away from paper. And I think as generations shift, we kind of understand maybe the technology, but we're still kind of not there yet.
Daniel?
You, Mr. Mayor? Yeah, that's definitely something we can look into, and we can loop back with you on that.
Counselor?
Great, thank you. Also, you mentioned Objective 7 about AI technology. So through Mr. Chair to Daniel, do you see AI actually making your work more efficient?
Daniel?
I think, there's a lot to explore on this front. And I think right now the plan of action would be more just the communications team staying on top of trends in AI, because I think we have to have a wider discussion at the organization about the use of AI, but it's absolutely, it would help improve processes for us.
Counselor?
Perfect. I look forward to that. Finally, with Objective 3 and your strategies, I was just a little confused about what the definition of that meant. Could you explain the multi-channel content strategy and the influencer strategy?
Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. A multi-channel content strategy would be us as a team determining what kinds of subjects we want to create, what kind of value add. And what I mean by value add is more proactive content, not just reacting to and not putting out materials just based on initiatives and programs. Content that we know people want information about, and figuring out how that plays out across different channels. What does it look like on Instagram? What does that same piece of content look like on our website? What does that same piece of content look when we're putting a press release out, for instance? So it's just identifying the channels that we want to put content out on a more regular basis. Because right now it's a little bit more of a haphazard thing, and we want to really be strategic about how we're taking a subject, a piece, a content piece, and dispersing it across all channels. In terms of the influencer strategy, it would be identifying influencers in the community, people that have strong social media followings, usually people that have a special niche, that have a target audience that really follow them, and making sure they're trusted and seeing if there's opportunities for us to work with them closely on leveraging their own audience. If there's someone in the community that has 20,000 followers, and there's someone that we think could get a message out for the town, at this point, I think we have to look into those opportunities.
Counselor?
Thank you. I guess we can agree to disagree on that one. The multi-channel content strategy sounds great. Obviously, advertising opportunities. I do see that there could be challenges with the influencer strategy. Regardless, I do think that there can be some pecuniary interest. I think that there could be different narratives. I don't think it's appropriate that the town is partnering with influencers in our town. It could mean many different things, different agendas. And I think that we should really be sticking to our town staff doing that kind of work. So for me, I just wanted clarity of what that meant. And it is what I thought it meant. And for me, I will listen to what my other colleagues have to say. But for me, I would prefer to remove that point, leveraging existing Aurora influencers and micro influencers out of the calendar or the plan that's being presented. But other than that, the rest of the plan looks great.
Thank you, Councilor Reese.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. It was a great presentation, I thought. It's a big job and it's an important job. So I'm very appreciative for the communications group going through this. Couple of questions that are add-ons to some I've heard. You say that there are a number of people that are hard to reach. How do you define that? Is it just non-internet people? And second question, and through you, Mayor, is where do you get the demographics? What is the number? Do you have an idea about that? So through you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a very good question. It's hard to identify these harder to reach groups, but it's not just people that are non-internet. It's also, we know we have a lot of people who don't speak English as a first language. So it's thinking about ways to reach them. And that could be through social media, but that could also be through their own media, through non-English media. So there's more to come on that for sure.
Counselor?
Thank you. And I don't see anything in here about, maybe I just missed it or it was identified in some other way, but the relationship with local print media, is the idea of that going to go this way or that way? How do you perceive that to be used? Because when I have people talk to me, some people do and some people don't use local media. So I'm wondering, with the trends that we're seeing in media, are we going to continue to use the local media and newspapers, or is it in a stay the same kind of a strategy for us?
Daniel?
Through you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think as we all know, local media in particular, the relationship, their newsrooms are evolving, they're shrinking. Of course, we're going to continue the relationship with local media and alerting them of all town news and initiatives, but it's also exploring different kinds of relationships with media, sponsored content, where we're actually, instead of doing a traditional ad like we would, we're actually writing an article ourselves and putting it in the newspaper that's written by the town. That's something that we've already started and already exploring. So it's definitely a lot more to come on that front, but it's definitely a changing landscape.
Counselor?
And the other couple of things, one of them, I want to reinforce what Councillor Gillen said about influencers and the concern that there may be over influencers. And I've long been a believer that our communication strategy here should be our official strategy in terms of messaging and key messaging. And sometimes that gets diluted or changed completely. And of course, the AI is a perfect example of how things get moved around. So I'm agreeing on that caution. But the last thing that I have is, I'd like to hear your view and the communications view about the influence of communication with respect to voter apathy and our continual annual or 4-year struggle to provide information to people about elections and how to access elections. And I think a KPI might be beating last year's or last term's election results. So through you, I'm just wondering if I didn't see it anywhere in here. So through you, Mr. Chair, is that something that could be put on the list of a KPI?
Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think that would be difficult for us to put that on as a KPI, given we only have so much control and can only do so much. Having said that, I think if you look at the plan holistically, if we're successful on a lot of these fronts, I think that generally creates more interest and connection with the town, which ultimately we hope would create more desire amongst residents to get out, get engaged, and vote and participate in local democracy.
Counselor?
Good answer. Thank you. I'm through.
Counselor Thompson?
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for all the work you and everybody else in the communications team and the development of the strategic plan. Specifically, I want to just talk about the key performance indicators. We've talked about it over the years that I've been on council, that it's helpful for us to be able to better evaluate the effectiveness of these strategies and the dollars that we put into all those communication channels and marketing efforts that we have. And so you've identified numerous KPIs throughout the document itself. But through you, Mr. Chair, how can we put some context to those key KPIs, because for the most part, you're identifying numbers, number of visits, number of followers, number of clicks, number of conversions. But are we also establishing internal targets in terms of growth year over year to see what the progression is? Because, at budget time, we often get those year review reports, say, well, we had, thousands and thousands of visits, but in terms of context, are we growing it? Did we set an internal target to grow by X percentage and reach that through that year, through those initiatives itself, or did we fall short? Like, I think there has to be more context around those KPIs to indicate whether or not we are growing and achieving what we set out to do, rather than just a base list of various numbers.
Daniel?
I couldn't agree more. I think every strategy that we're going to have is going to have targets, and we're going to make sure that we're constantly refining our tactics to make sure that we're reaching those targets. But I think you're absolutely right. I think this is partly why we've done this plan, is to set in motion a bunch of different strategies that are going to have clearly articulated targets. So we're going to then come back at the end of the year and say, did we reach our targets? Why didn't we reach our targets? And what can we do to ensure that we have growth as we move forward?
Great. Look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Kim, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Daniel, and the team for producing the report. Just want to highlight in terms of the importance of upskilling communication professionals. And similar to other professions, whether you're an auto mechanic and you see the development, the technology that goes into automobiles these days, mechanics have to upgrade their skills. Otherwise, it gets obsolete. So I fully understand and appreciate the need for upgrading one's skills, and especially with the digital tools that are available, you got to know how to use it. So my question is, as the team is writing this report, you guys must have had a rough idea in terms of what the professional development would look like. So through you, Mr. Mayor, can you kind of address that in terms of what do you think the upgrades would be? What staff looking for?
Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we obviously have identified many different workshops and seminars we can go to, but I think there's a desire and a need on our team to actually go to certain trainings and learn new skills, whether that's, editing video or whether that's understanding social listening tools. I think what's important is, though, we only have so much ability just ourselves in the communications team in terms of budget, and it's working closely with our HR department and their broader learning and development strategy to ensure that our team has the opportunities to continue to grow. So I think those are going to be ongoing discussions with HR and the corporate, what is it? Geez, what are the corporate services as a whole? Yes, sorry, Jace, drew a blank.
Councillor?
Thank you. And going on a different tangent through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the key communication tools is the written language. And if people don't understand the language, they're not going to have a high propensity to read any communication. And we know that our national language is English and French. But clearly, our town, we've had an influx of residents whose mother tongue is from somewhere else other than English. Have you reviewed what other municipalities are doing it where there has been a heavy influx, and in order to get a greater community engagement, you need to kind of go in there and communicate in their language? I'm not saying necessarily verbally, but from a written communication perspective. And I'm sure there's a lot of challenges with that too, because, if you're going to allow one tertiary language, why are you not including others? And so that opens up a can of worms as well. But are there general industry communication industry thought on that matter?
Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think it's like community engagement generally. It's really hard. And then when you take language, when we have that barrier with language, it becomes even harder. I think we're going to be looking more in the future at how we can get through to residents whose first language is in English, but I don't think there's any clear cut industry standard of how to get through to those communities. It's always a challenge, and I think it's always been a challenge.
Counselor?
That's right. Thank you.
Counselor Gallo, first time.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel and Carly and the whole team for putting this together. It's a very robust program, and I'm very happy to see it. I'm encouraged that we can better communicate with our residents. That's always a good thing at the end of the day. A well-educated community is beneficial to all of us. In terms of our website, I've given up a long time ago, and I haven't even complained for a long time. Our search engines, I use Google and far better than that. So any improvements to that is, I think, a win. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not that encouraged because I've said this in this microphone many times, but I'm hopeful this will be the time that we take a serious look at it and deal with it. Most of my other questions are already been asked. I didn't pick up on the influencers. I think I share that view, unless there's some really strict parameters around that. I tend to have a bit of an issue with that and shy away from it. There's a last page that speaks to, and just maybe it's a typo, or I don't know. It speaks to acknowledgements. How did we reach out to these people? Come up to us and say we'd like to contribute to this, or how did we reach out to, through you, Mr. Mayor, the people that contributed to this, other than obviously council?
Daniel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this was something that was determined internally by the communications team. We wanted to get a cross section of people from Aurora, community groups, mothers, fathers, people from different ethnic communities. It's the intent was never to engage with everyone. We couldn't possibly do that. It was really to confirm some of our assumptions about where our gaps were, and also to learn about potential new gaps that we haven't identified. The good news is that this plan actually makes strong recommendations, a plan to actually figure out a way for us to actually do more in community engagement, not just on town initiatives, but on our own communications, to get the community feedback on what we can do better. We have a lot of capabilities with our Engage Aurora platform to just ask the community what they'd like to see from the communications department. So the plan going forward is actually to do more of these kind of stakeholder sessions on an ongoing basis.
That's great. And obviously you got a pretty good cross section. I would just make one correction. The president of the Aurora Youth Soccer Club is Roy Cohen and not Sandy Porter.
Oh, okay.
Simple mistake.
We
I
will
think we should
change that for the doc through you. We'll change that to
thank you.
Document.
Thank you. Counselor Gardner, second time.
Thank you. First, just some suggestions with respect to seniors. I know seniors read the Auroran. I don't think they do the online version, so would be print. Most of the concerts in the park, most of the people who attend concerts in the park in the summer are seniors, or let's say a lot of them are, and that would be a good place to get out news or have a newsletter. Chats also has a lot. They do they do groups for different nationalities, so that would be a good way. And but I would like to make a motion to remove under objectives, the official title is develop new impactful content to better inform community members. I would like to take out leverage existing Aurora influencers and micro influencers. I love the idea of giving them the message, but I want the message to be 100% of an Aurora message. And as Councilor Weiss said, sometimes messages can get changed or mixed up. So the messaging needs to be official and from the town. So I'd like to make a motion, if I could, to remove the second bullet under objective 3 strategies.
Want to make an amendment?
And I guess it would have, Yeah, it would be and I don't know if I have to address the associated tactics. Yeah, so also, from the associated tactics, remove, influencer strategy. I don't think influencers have a place in this communication strategy. So would anyone like to second that?
A seconder? Councilor Gillen? Just gonna wait to get it on the
Thank
screen.
you. For, oh, okay. Thank you. And also to add from the associated techniques to remove influencer strategy. Influencer strategy is done capital I, capital S.
Just get that square.
Oh, it's just here.
Yeah, so
Okay. Okay. So if the point in the objective is erased, then that. Okay, thank you.
Any comments, questions to the amendment? Councilor Gillen? To the amendment.
Thank you. I just prefer to see some sort of language saying a strategy, because the tactic was using a strategy, although this is a comment about leveraging. It doesn't necessarily say that we're excluding the strategy around doing that. So is there a way that we could include the word strategy somewhere, influencer strategy, references to influencer strategy or leveraging? I just want to see both those words in there, because it doesn't necessarily say that we're removing the strategy around it. It's just saying we're taking away that sentence.
Actually,
That's fine. That's fine. So,
Mover and seconder, okay?
I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. You fine with that?
Mover and seconder, okay?
Yep.
Thank you. Any comments, questions to the amendment? No, Ms. Smith, did you want to say something? I think you wanted to just speak. You were trying to get in earlier, but I said I have to wait till the motion gets to you. Go ahead.
Understood through you, Mr. Mayor. I think there might be some negative connotation to the word influencer. Like it or not, everyone in this room could be considered an influencer. If you have an audience and you're sharing information, you're an influencer. An influencer reaches an audience that we cannot, or we may not be able to reach. So I understand there might be some negative connotation. I think instead of removing it entirely from the strategic plan, perhaps we can then bring a report back or some education session on our thinking a bit further. Influencers are sharing information from the town right now, whether we like it or not. So not having a relationship with them is actually doing us more harm in that regard. This is just opening up those lines of communication, making sure that we're reaching the right people with the right message and providing them with the right message. I mean, this is looking at Robin, the sport plan, and reaching that sport community. We don't have that audience following our channels. So we need to reach out to people who do have that audience so they can then amplify our message. So I understand there might be some negative connotation with what an influencer is, but I'm hoping we can bring that back to council rather than just removing this entirely from the plan.
Thank you. Councilor Thompson to the amendment.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Smith. Carly, is the approval of this strategic plan time sensitive? Could it wait another month, another cycle?
Smith.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the many items in this plan have already started. We've got many under the way. The DI calendar has gone out at the beginning of the year. So much of the items in this plan are already in action. But the plan itself doesn't have to be approved by council today. It can definitely wait. We can provide more information.
I think my preference would be, as suggested by Ms. Smith, is that this item just get referred back to staff, and they can provide a little bit more information around the concerns of influencers rather than us trying to wordsmith it at the table.
You, Councillor Gardner, to the amendments.
Three, Mr. Mayor. I finally remembered. I agree that influencers are important to share a message, but the message that needs to come out from the communications department, in my opinion, is it's a message that has weight because we're speaking on behalf of the town and council. So if influencers want to share that message, that's one thing, but to get them involved with ways to present that message, I don't think that's appropriate. I think everything has to come from the communications department and be 100% official. Yes, we do need to find a way to get to influencers. And I'm wondering, with respect to the example was the sport plan. Well, we could share that with Sport Aurora to put out to their community. I think that would be a way to, I mean, we can think of ways to do it as long as it is the official message from the town. And so therefore, I think we should just.
And Councillor, that what you just put there, just to give you an idea, that's an influencer. What you just suggested is an influencer, giving it to an influencer.
Yes, but we're giving them official information
But
from
that's what Ms. Smith has been explaining.
corporate
So maybe
communications.
Councillor Thompson's correct. Maybe there should be a workshop for council on this, so there can be a better understanding. Councillor Gardner?
Sharing information is good as long as it's the information that comes officially from the town, because it is the communications strategy that we're talking about and the communications department. I think my intent is understood. I'd love to have a report on how we could leverage influencers, but I think that this has to come out of the strat plan for now and move forward with some of the wonderful ideas that you have.
Any other comments, questions on this? Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I have no issues getting more detailed information on how this would play out. I think either way would work. Either remove it now if people feel comfortable that way in moving forward with everything else and not stopping everything else as a result of this. And then there's nothing wrong with staff coming back with a report and providing more detail on how they see this type of strategy play out in the community. So either way works for me. My preference is let's remove it for now and be comfortable with moving forward with everything else and not stopping everything else from moving forward as a result of this.
Any other comments, questions on the amendment? Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. I just wanted to have an opportunity to respond to Ms. Smith. I understand what you're saying as far as leveraging, other people who might be influencers in the community, but I look at it in a different lens to where there could be conflicts of interest. There could be different narratives. There could be pecuniary interest. And the way I see it, anybody in the community can share town communication now as it is. So to me, it's no different. If there's something over and above and the town wants permission to be able to share it on a different site other than a town site, then, maybe let's talk about that later. But there is a lot of sensitivity around social media right now and how social media is being conducted with various sites. I also did take a look at, who had worked on the communication strat plan. And, I just think that there's a lot of opportunity that could not be as beneficial as we like. I just feel that we have a communications department. We pay a lot of taxes to have a great communications department. We invest a lot. And I think that's where we need to keep it. So if staff wants to bring a report back and bring a case as to why this is important with examples, open to hearing that. But for now, I'd like to see this part removed.
Any other comments, questions? I'll vote. That carries. Back to the main motion as amended. There's no further comments. Just waiting for it to go up. Daniel, while we wait, thank you for the job that you guys have done. Our communication team is phenomenal. And you guys do a great job. So thank you very much. Call vote. It carries. 9.2. Final budget reconciliation to full accrual counting. Recommendations that report number FIN 24-001 be received, and 2, that the reconciliation of the 2024 to 2026 operating budgets to the full accrual basis of accounting as required under Ontario Regulations 284/09 as summarized in attachment 1 be endorsed. Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Gallo, second by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, this is the second time eScribe has bottomed out on me, so if anybody else wants to speak.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Gardner. Welcome this evening. Perhaps for those that may not understand the changes, you could give a brief explanation of what's the difference in the PSAB standards and why, when you look at attachment 1, it shows a deficit as opposed to previous reports that have come before this table showing that we had an operating surplus.
Mr. Gardner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the way that PSAB or audited financial statement looks at revenues and expenses is different than how we budget for revenues and expenses. Generally speaking, if it's in the budget, it has a cash impact. If from a public sector accounting standards perspective, sometimes we may deem something to be an expense, but from its perspective, it's not an expense. An example is a payment of debt. So from payment of debt, both the principal and interest that we pay is a cash expense to us. So we budget for the full debt payment. However, from a financial statement perspective, from an income statement perspective that you see there, because that cash is being used to pay down a liability, that the principal part is not considered an expense, just the interest part is considered an expense, for example. So in this adjustment here, we're trying to adjust our cash-based budget to the way it would be reported in the income statements for the corporation if you were to look at them. So similarly speaking, in an instance where for financial statement purposes, for PSAS purposes, we have to calculate amortization on an asset. From our perspective, the amortization of an asset doesn't cost us anything. It only costs us something we actually end up having to replace that asset. So that amortization we don't budget for, but for financial statement purposes, we need to show that as an expense. So if we put in, for example, amortization expenses, you see on here, amortization expenses is $19.1 million. We don't budget $19.1 million for amortization because that doesn't cost us from a bank standpoint. So that's one of the biggest drivers of the shortfall you see here when we add that big amortization expense to our budget. So that's why you're seeing such a large deficit here. So these differences, how we report in the financial statements versus budget, is what's leading to this loss that's here.
Councillor.
Thank you. And I think it's important to just clarify, because under the Municipal Act, municipalities are not allowed to run a deficit, but that's really from an operational perspective. This report does not show that we are in violation of that principle, because it's really talking more to the accounting standards of amortization, interest expenses, and so forth. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Gartner. I didn't catch everything that you said. So the bottom line is that we're showing a deficit with this kind of accounting.
Mr. Gardner.
Through
me.
Pardon me.
Councillor Gardner, go ahead. I mean, Mr. Gardner, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Bottom line, we are not forecasting a deficit. Primarily, so I guess first, the Municipal Act requires us to do this reconciliation. It's an attempt to reconcile how our budget would look if we reported on a financial statement basis. We don't, like, for example, as I mentioned previously, we don't budget for stuff like amortization, because that doesn't cost us money. However, we're required to show what it would look like if we did budget for amortization. So that's why you're seeing this negative. But bottom line is, we're not forecasting to have a shortfall whatsoever. We're basically just saying, if we were going to try to budget the way our financial statement requires us to do it, it would show a negative result. But it's not. At the end of the day, it's not a cash picture that you're looking at here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. That carries. 9.3. Recommendations that report number PDS 24-007 be received, and 2, that council authorize two town staff to accompany the delegation. Does someone want to move that recommendation, or do you want to just do the received at this point? Just to receive. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gallo. Comments or questions? Councillor Lamb.
Thank you. I have to say I was surprised by the report, and I didn't think that this was something that we were going to entertain at a time when obviously we're trying to, pinch the pennies, and there's people who are struggling right now. We're trying to keep our taxes low and such. And while I appreciate the report, I was a little surprised about some of the benefits that were stated there, specifically on the climate side. I just want to back up with the letter and just kind of reiterate, if anybody goes in the report and reads the letter of the invitation, it doesn't suggest that we are being invited to discuss these topics. Rather, we're being invited, and that they would make the trip beneficial. So I'm sure we had to find a reason, and this was the reasons that staff's report had come up with. And as in relation to climate, I know our delegate had spoken about, the way the policies are different. And I'm sure that we could definitely find some examples in our own backyard of Ontario where we could learn by example. But also there's something called FCM, and FCM is the Federal Conferences of Municipalities, where people from all across Canada meet, and it's a big meeting once a year. There's MPs, it's people have gone all around the world, and they've collaborated, and they bring information to people all across Canada of all the newest and latest things that are a priority to Canada, climate being one of them. And I'm sure they've traveled and done COP28, maybe Davos, I don't know, but collaborated with the UN climate caucuses, and they bring that information to the FCM. And there are workshops that we can choose to actually sit in, and staff, yes, do go to that. So we do have access to that kind of learning, as well as AMO, which is the Annual Municipal Conferences of Ontario, where all local MPPs and the elected officials as well attend. And the reason why that's separated is because Ontario's policies and the way we build things here would be different than, say, Alberta. And so we can collaborate in a different way, in a more micro way. So yeah, I'm sure that the people who have put those conferences together also would collaborate and attain information worldwide. I know myself, I attended a conference in Toronto and back in 2018. And back then there was speakers from the UN and people across Canada to acquire this information. So I guess my point is that we have access to information about climate initiatives and sustainability and examples at our fingertips, whether it's through Zoom or locally at conferences here. I don't feel traveling all the way to Leksand is going to give us that much of a different perspective, whether it's staff or our mayor. As far as some of the other things that were highlighted with our downtown, I'm sure they have a cute downtown. We do have Ontario BIA Association here. It has a magnificent resource in a local BIA, and whether I do know that whether it's the Economic Development Board's a mandate, I didn't see a recommendation from them to suggest that it would be beneficial to town of Aurora to be sending staff there. Just quick comment. I know that Councillor Kim had suggested that it said in the report that councillors were to pay their way. I didn't see that. But if that was the way it was written, so be it. I personally couldn't afford to go anyway. That would be about probably 1/3 of our annual income. So that's just something that I personally am not going to entertain. The way I look at this is it's an opportunity. It's an unfortunate timing. However, I just feel this is just not necessary, and there's other ways that we can collaborate and communicate, especially with technology today. I think it's great that they came here, how wonderful it is, but I just can't see this being as valuable as what's being presented. And from there, I hope my colleagues agree that we shouldn't be moving forward with any trips across the country and climate. The funny irony is let's hop on a plane and CO2 everything and go to another country to learn this. Meanwhile, we could probably just do it here in our own backyard using a lot of CO2.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. I won't repeat what Councillor Gillen said or Mr. Hartman. I share both views, and I would like to put an amendment on the floor that says that no town of Aurora funds be used on any attendees, including but not limited to travel, accommodations, food, etc.
Second. Councillor Gillen.
No town of Aurora funds be used on any attendees, including but not limited to travel, accommodation, food, etc.
Did you get that, Mr. Clerk? It's not completely right.
That no town of Aurora, sorry, I didn't send this earlier. That no town of Aurora funds be used on any attendees, including but not limited to travel, accommodation, food, etc. That's it.
Good.
Yep.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, to the amendment? Call the vote. Carries. Back to the main motion. Charlie, you still have the floor. Councilor Weiss.
Thank you. I wouldn't like for us to leave here tonight without valuing the relationship that we have and established with Leksand for a number of years. It's been a cultural as well as a sport exchange. We've been invited by them to come and visit. It's opened doors for us. I believe that they had something to do with the Sweden and the IIHF. So there's a lot of good things happening there. I'm not in support of spending the money, and I think the other thing that I wanted to bring up here is that from a report standpoint, it would have been a lot more powerful if we had reports on specific things that had to come back. Because whenever I've traveled corporately elsewhere, they don't just send me off. They send me off with a chore list of things to come back with and reports that are beneficial to us. I appreciate everything that Mr. Hartman said as well, so I won't repeat that. But I wouldn't want the message to go back to Leksand, Sweden, that we don't care about this relationship. Because we actually do, it's just maybe the wrong time. And maybe we need to sharpen our pencils a little bit more about the purpose. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Thompson.
I would agree with the sentiment that anytime we were discussing initiatives such as this, there always needs to be a process by which to show the value and what the benefit is, not just to the community, but to the town as well. And we do the same thing when we have conversations around conferences. We put $20,000 aside in our budget every year for counselors to attend AMO and FCM and other conferences. And there's a responsibility on each one of us, if we choose to go to those conferences, to come back and show the value to the residents and around the table that there was a benefit in spending that money. And I would expect the same thing from any trip to anywhere. And so in my conversations with the CAO, the intent was as well, is that there would be a report coming back by staff if they were to attend, to illustrate what was discussed, the value, the benefits, how the relationship would continue on. And so the attempt would be to justify the cost. But again, I agree with the sentiment, but I still think that there is potential and value in considering it.
Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. That carries. .4 changes to current practices for minimizing negative impacts of residential infill construction. Recommendations, report number PDS 24-010 be received. 2, that the amendments to the town's administrative penalty bylaw AMPS and the town's building bylaw to include an administrative penalty for the failure to have a safety fence installed at a residential construction site be brought forward for enactment at a future council meeting. Who would like to move this? Nobody? Councilor Gallagher, second by Councilor Thompson. Any comments or questions on this? And I would ask that it be new information. we don't rehash what we've already talked about 3 times. Councillor Gardner.
3, Mr. Mayor. To Mr. Jean. Mr. Jean. Thank you for coming. I didn't have a chance to read this in time to speak with you today. We did discuss a dust fence, I believe, to protect neighbors and construction machinery left on the road without hazard markings that would provide a potential safety issue and various other things. I know that the noise bylaw is just too hard to try and enforce, but the other things that I brought up at the other meetings, I understand the report is similar to the one you brought before. And, we like to do things by speaking to somebody and getting voluntary compliance, but that doesn't always happen. So we're left with no tools when that does happen. If building personnel goes over and says, you're washing your machinery equipment into our sewers and that's not permitted, there's no there's no way to stop them the next day. There's no way to say this is going to cost the residents money, therefore there's a fine. So it doesn't really accomplish I think that tree protection during construction is addressed in the building bylaw somewhere. That's not something I have to worry about. If trees on the site need to be protected. Yeah. So it's other things. And one of the main things that the reason this all started was because I was at a friend's in the evening and there was construction material, like equipment on the street, and there was no hazard markings. That's really a safety issue, not, an inconvenience so. Is there any way to have fines? I'm sorry, from here, there's a meeting on site, it sounds to me. So we would say all of those things. I would prefer to have them written before we give them a building permit. But we have a difference of opinion and you're the chief building official. So I guess you win. But, you go over to the site, you tell people all these things. You may see machinery on the road or the town's right of way. You say it's not acceptable and then they do it. So what is the next step?
Jane?
There's a lot there, but I'll try to we'll reach one as best I can. With regards to the issue of fines, one of the initiatives that the town has done is pass the AMPS bylaw.
Yes.
And in that bylaw came to council, I think December 16th or December 8th. I can't remember the exact date, but just before the new year. And in that bylaw, there are specific, in the Schedule B, there are specific fines for specific violations. The ones that you had alluded to with regards to the using the street for storing construction materials without cones, there is a set fine now in the AMPS bylaw where they can be provided with a ticket. Previously, you would have to go through the courts to get any enforcement. Now, with regards to the issue that you brought up with regards to dust fence, that is something that we, again, like I had stated earlier at Council and GC, that dust issues on construction sites are very few. We don't get very many. And I've gone back through the past 10 years and you get, with regards to dust complaints, they're mostly people maybe jackhammering on the sidewalk, not building code related issues. And because of that, no, we're not recommending a dust fence. However, in our construction bylaw, but we do have a requirement for a safety construction fence. And what will be coming forth to council in the near future, probably the next council meeting, is we're amending the AMPS bylaw to include a fine if you don't have the proper construction fence. If it's down, we could issue a fine or a ticket at that point. But like I said, again, earlier at previous meetings, because of the very low number of occurrences that happened with regards to nuisance issues, we generally use persuasion, or we just speak with the contractors or the developers to get voluntary compliance. And that works the majority of the time. And that's also the practice of most municipalities, is to just educate at the beginning rather than immediately develop a poor relationship with the contractor by issuing the fine. Now, with regards to the other issue you brought up with regards to educating or providing something at the building permit stage, yes, we've come up with a residential infill poster, which we will be giving to them. And on that poster will be on one side notes such as keep the site tidy, keep the road clean. And on the other side, we provided a picture of the house or the addition, as well as any pertinent information with regards to the builder's email address, the builder's address, as well as any, if they went through any specific approvals like the Ontario Land Tribunal. So by providing that, we think will alleviate a lot of the concerns that you had brought up. But another two things that we've also proposed and we'll be doing is, one is providing, updating our website where we will actually have infill property development, and we'll put the location of it, maybe a brief description of what they're doing, 2-story house, and the builder's information, so they can contact them if they have any concerns, as well as, and then again, this is for infill properties, not for every construction, but the building inspector will attempt to contact the contractor prior to them constructing. Right after they issue the permit, meet with them on site and maybe just go through many of these items to educate them. So in my opinion, by doing these many items, I think will alleviate a lot of your concerns.
Councillor?
Through Mr. Mayor, thank you. I see you've done a lot of work and I appreciate it. I'm trying to address the people that are not, who are going to do what they want to do. For example, in the Highland development, I've seen residents seeing a lot of washing of the construction vehicles and the tires into the sewer system. And there's lots of muck on them, and there may be, I don't know, bits of concrete. Well, that's going into our sewer system, and our sewer system wasn't meant for that. So what do you do? What does a resident do if they see that and they think, oh, that can't be right? And they call the town, like, you don't have enough staff to really have someone run over and tell them to stop. If we don't tell them up front that that's not permitted.
Councillor?
That specific type of activity is, yes, I agree, very difficult to police and enforce because they're doing it at a specific instance. Again, if a resident were to call and say, hey, somebody's washing their concrete truck at a specific location, I guess they could call the bylaw enforcement officer, and I'm sure he'll go out there. Unfortunately, if it's done in a very short time, he might not be able to catch them. But if he does catch them, he can through the AMPS program, that would be following of the highway, so he would be able to give that person a
Would that become a fine?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for your work on this. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Call the vote. That carries. Regional report. Someone like to move that? Receive. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Kim, any comments, questions on the regional report? Call the vote. Let's go. Oh, just kidding. Thank you. That carries. New business. Think we'll get done in 4 minutes. Councilor Kim, new business. Councilor Gallo, Councilor Thompson. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if it's been communicated out to towns for our social media channels or not, but just prior to the Christmas break, the town completed the acquisition of a property on Yonge Street, a total of 16 acres. And so I just certainly want to appreciate the work the staff did in acquiring it. It was a great value for us, and look forward to having conversations around the table of the potential and what we may or may not be able to do with it in the coming years.
Thank you. Ms. Grenner.
And I think you might have addressed this at Regional Council. I know we addressed this in the chamber, but it's a long time ago. So this is an update on Highway 417. The federal government is now requiring an environmental assessment before it's built. So I think that was the intention of Regional Council and perhaps this council as well. So that's a great development. There's a lot of farmland and environmental land in the area where the 417 is intended to be built. So I think that's great news. Pardon? You don't think it's 417?
No, it's 413, I believe, isn't it? 413 we're talking about.
413.
Yeah.
I missed it by 5.
That's fine. And that's
That's
all right.
Thank you,
4 different highways.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson.
Yeah, and that was a speaking of travel, it was a great meeting I had with the Minister of the Environment in Ottawa about this specific topic. So it's good to see that they're moving forward with that assessment. Councillor Gilliland, new business.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair to Mr. Ramuno. I did notice in the report in regards to the Leksand trip, and I was a little confused, it had mentioned about the region, and I don't know how or why that came about. I think that's a secondary invite, and I had asked and inquired who was selected at that time back by GC. I was told it was going to be Wednesday, the day after GC. I inquired again, surely you know who they've selected if they're actually going. And once again, I got the answer that we're going to wait till after council. So I'm not really quite sure what the intention is by waiting. Is it because the region may or may not go? What we decide here might decide who their selection is. I'm just really confused about kind of how that came about.
I can answer if you'd like, Mr. Romano. The region essentially jumped on board when they realized that we got invited and we're going to Sweden because of the Vision Zero aspect of it. Aligns extremely well with what the region is doing, and we're actually part of that Vision Zero project and moving forward with that. And so, as far as who's going from the region, that's up to the region to decide, not us.
Great. It doesn't mean that we can't voice our opinion about that. It is still taxpayer dollars, even though it's the region. I still don't personally agree with spending dollars to be sending people over to Sweden. Again, like I said, there's a lot of high level officials that are being that are traveling around the world on other important climate initiatives, such as the climate caucuses around the world, COP28 and so forth. The UN, I know myself, I've been invited virtually by Zoom with climate action that include the UN and some high level government officials. So in my opinion, I just don't think it's appropriate, whether it's through the region or the town of Aurora. And I just want to be consistent in that.
Thank you. Councilor Reese, new business?
The only new business I have came out of the applications at 65 St. John's, and we heard repeatedly that St. John and Young intersection is a dangerous place. We've heard stories about it. I've been there myself, and I agree with the increased traffic there, and that is anticipated. So I intend to talk to our traffic people to see about mitigation strategies, but the problem, of course, is that's a regional road. And I just want to bring that to your attention as our representative to York Region, because I know we're going to see more development around the corner and then maybe across the street. And that is a very high risk. It's becoming a very high risk intersection, and we ought to put a little bit of attention to it. So.
Councillor, and just to give you an update, I was going to give you an update once I got a response back, but I can tell you roughly about a month and a half ago, I spoke with the commissioner in regards to that specific area, and staff at the region are working on possible options that could be available to us. So once I do get that report back, I will share that with you so you can provide that to the residents in Ward 1.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Thank you. Hey. We almost made the 4 minutes. Bylaws. We'd like to move to bylaws. Councillor Thompson, you want to move them? Absolutely. Sue wants to second it. Councillor Kim, thank you. Councillor Gilliland. We're doing 13.1.
Thank you. Yes, this has got to do with the official plan. I just want to be consistent that I'm not happy with a few of the things in the official plan, mainly the Leslie Street corridor. We have several examples of heights at 7 and I believe even 8 stories. I believe the new OP is set at 4. All we're doing, in my opinion, is setting up a process here where we will be challenged on a continual basis. And this is our opportunity to streamline this process. I feel that being close to a lot of employment, as well as the Promenade MTSA employment area, and a lot of the topography there really lends itself to this type of intensification, not shouldering onto stable neighborhoods, as we've been being faced with, especially in the MTSA with a lot of established neighborhoods. That area on Leslie, in my opinion, seems to be a very appropriate area to do this type of intensification. So I don't agree with the official plan. I don't know if now is the time to, or maybe later, to make a motion to increase the baseline to 7-story. We already have one lot in particular that was already changed in official plan at 7. It just makes sense that the rest would follow suit. It's just causing more red tape and more backlog, and government is being part of the problem and getting shovels in the ground, in my opinion. And this is an example of where I think that this ought to change. Secondly, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno, it was brought to my attention that in one of the properties on the east side of Bayview, that there was an accessory dwelling zoning on the employment lands there, which was in the old OP. Somehow it was removed. I'm not really quite sure. That hasn't been addressed. It doesn't make sense to me why that was removed, unless there's something in specific as to staff's reasoning as to why that was removed. I'd be interested in understanding. I feel there's maybe some information there that was not included.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Gillian, if you're referring to the letter received from KLM to council yesterday, that is a very, very minor sort of edit that the region made with respect to our earlier draft. OP had the wording of accessory uses. The region changed that to ancillary. It is very minor. If council were called, the KLM group that Addison Hall went through a rezoning 6 months ago to clean up some of the wording in the zoning bylaws. So this is a very minor edit. I would not suggest that we hold up or delay the approval of the official plan. It was a change from the region. Once council adopts, I hope council adopts the actual bylaw for the official plan this evening. What happens then is we send the formal adopted official plan to the region. They're the approval authority. They've been working with staff since we started this project 4 years ago. They may have some minor words editing to make to ensure that we're in conformity with their plan and the growth plan. I suspect there'll be minor editing, but there's still an opportunity to make some minor mods to our official plan prior to the region approving the document. And this is one of them. But again, this is a very minor matter here. I don't think council should be concerned about it. When the region over the next month or two sends us a list of modifications to our official plan, I will be bringing a report back to council explaining those modifications before regional staff prepares their report and puts that in front of regional council for final approval of the official plan.
Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate that. So as far as the Leslie Street corridor, one of the questions I had, if it was something that I felt strongly about with the 4-story versus 7-story along Leslie, where it's been designated in those types of development, is it appropriate for me to entertain a motion on that now or later?
Mr. Romano, what's the heights along Leslie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the heights along the local corridors within our official plan.
Specifically Leslie Street.
Leslie. 4 stories along the local corridors. There are sections along Leslie Street between Bayview and I'm sorry, Leslie. Are you talking about the intersection of Leslie and Wellington?
Could be just north and south, and wherever the open land is there. We have several examples of 7, maybe 8 stories there. And we already have a property there that is designated 7 stories. It just seems to me it's an invitation that we're going to be always be challenged with that area. And I don't know why we wouldn't just streamline the process a little bit more on that, on the local corridor there where the 4 is already being proposed.
Renee? Mr. Romano?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I mean, what I can say is council adopted the report and the final official plan that established the hierarchy of heights and densities throughout the municipality in December. Again, there's a hierarchy of heights, our promenade, regional corridor, Yonge Street, major transit station area, then the local corridors with a height permission of 4 stories. Saying that, there are some sections within some of those secondary plans that are still within this new official plan, specifically OPA 30, that does have the permission of up to 7 stories in certain locations. So again, we've gone through a long consultation period, 4 years on this, with community input and stakeholders. So we think we've got a robust plan, conforms to the growth plan. We can achieve our long-term population employment targets. Again, it's up to council. The final bylaw is before you to enact it at this point. Trying to make changes at this stage is, I'll be honest, is a little late for that. But, it's ultimately it's council's decision if you want to adopt the official plan. My suggestion is I hope you adopt it tonight. We want to get this off to the region. So they can approve it. So there's certainty with respect to our land use designations and some of our policies in the development industry and applicants. We then have a plan to use, as a guide moving forward, dealing with growth management long term. Having said that, you've heard me say this in the past. It doesn't stop an applicant coming in with an application to attempt to amend our official plan, and we will then review those applications on a case-by-case basis.
Councillor?
Thank you. And just again, I'm going to reiterate that I don't discredit the hard work in the last 4 years. It's no secret the last 12 months has proven to be an extremely difficult situation that no one could have predicted, with the amount of inflation and the amount of immigration and the influx of that pressure on everything on our town and the availability of this type of housing. And so while we may have started this 4 years ago, a lot of things have changed since then. And while, yes, you are correct that anybody could come in and they could make an amendment change. But I think that's kind of my point, that, you know, the 4-story just lends itself to holding things up at that 4-story, because I personally don't feel that there's going to be very many developers that are going to come to the Leslie Street corridor and find it economically viable or performa wise to put shells in the ground with this type of housing choices like condos and rental units. I believe that, you know, we will need to concede, and we're just holding up some of that process. I could see 7 stories being a little bit more of a viable option that could be a bit more economical to allow this type of housing, attainable housing. I know affordable housing is one of those terms that we don't like to say, but the reality is the new starter home is that condo size. The war bungalows were it back then, and now it's offering condos. And I just feel like we are holding the process up. Again, we are part of that problem. So I guess my question through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno, when is the appropriate time to put in a motion to change that within the Leslie corridor, local corridor area? It does shoulder also the MTSA promenade as well. So it is shouldering very rather intensified
It's 5
location.
minutes, Councillor, so I can get you to finish your question.
I did ask a question.
No, I was asking if you could finish the question. I was giving you a couple of seconds to finish it, if you'd like to finish it. Otherwise, I'll just go to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we're at a point here where we've completed the process, final bylaws before council for enacting it. If council decides not to enact a bylaw, to ask us and direct staff to sort of revisit some of those policies, certainly going to be a delay. And, you know, in my opinion, my advice, it will also, without the approval of the plan, it will delay other projects and other applicants that have been waiting for the plan and the new policies in the plan to take effect. You know, we're also, I mean, this plan will also inform our, you know, it is informing our DC bylaw update. And there's also the regional project on the North YDSS Leslie Trunk Sewer project. And, you know, again, this is a guiding document that informs a number of other plans that are underway. So again, I'm in council's hands, but you know, we've gone through the process. The report that was presented to council back in December was the final document. That was based on, you know, close to 4 years of consultation and input, and that's how we arrived at the final document.
Mr. Gallo.
Some of my questions were answered through this last discussion. Just so I'm clear, let's say this doesn't move forward tonight. What would be the ramifications? I think you just went through that right now. If a motion is put forward to increase on Leslie Street from 4 to 7, would you consider that, through you, Mr. Mayor, a wholesale change and a significant deviance from the current plan, and difficult to make that change?
Through
you, Mr. Mayor, we're talking about a small section, but yes, it could affect the effectiveness of the plan and the policies in the other areas. Because again, it was based on we've got a clear hierarchy of intensification that was well thought out and established. You know, starting, as I mentioned before, with our promenade secondary plan, which was a baseline, the new major transit station area, which is new to this plan and the regional plan, the regional corridor and the local corridors. So if we start making changes to, for in this case, local corridors, I think that may have a ripple effect on the validity of the policies in the in other areas of the town. And then it's a question of, you know, do you want us to go out for additional public engagement? And it'll just be significant delays, in my opinion, based on the work that we've done in the past. You know, my advice to council is, you know, the report was before council in December. bylaw is really just enacting it so we can then get this plan off to the region for final approval.
Councillor.
Thank you.
Councillor Garner. Oh, no. Councillor Weiss.
Thank you. I guess similar to Councillor Gilliland, I was invited over to Unimotion on Edward Street, and that's a unique circumstance there because it's a manufacturing facility. I toured the facility. I learned about their environmental requirements that they must need in order to maintain their certification as a manufacturer in that industry. And the unique characteristic of us having the residential, zoned residential in there, and the work that has been done by that in that application that has been before us seems to be problematic. And Magna, of course, which is a Unimotion, has been a very good corporate citizen for ourselves right now. And I just want to be assured that something can be done about that promenade area, that special area where we're allowing residential in a commercial manufacturing area. So I'd like to hear Mr. Ramuno on that particular parcel and the problems that we have with residential and manufacturing area. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno.
Mr. Ramuno.
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Weiss. And I have spoken to Ms. Rice in the past, and I know she's here, and I've offered to meet with her again and her representatives to explain the policies in our plan. But first, I want to make it clear that the new official plan hasn't made any changes to that specific property on Edward Street or the surrounding area. The promenade designation dates back to our 2010 official plan. So this new version of the plan hasn't changed any land use designations there. But I do want to assure council and Ms. Rice will meet again in that we understand that those employment operations can still continue to operate even when adjacent lands that have been designated for residential, when those residential developments are approved, Ministry of Environment guidelines are clear under their class 4 category that allows this type of residential infill within our promenade adjacent to existing employment operations, that any burden on noise mitigation based on those existing industrial operations, essentially the onus is on the new residential use to mitigate those matters. And so those existing operations like the Magna operation, their Ministry of Environment compliance approvals will not be impacted. So again, staff will meet with Ms. Rice and her staff just to explain the situation. But again, just to be clear, the new official plan hasn't made any changes in that part of the promenade east of Yonge around Edward and in Aurora Drive.
Councillor.
Thank you. I didn't get to meet Ms. Rice when I was there. I met her other colleagues. So I want to say thank you for the time your people took with me and explaining it. So I just bring up this point in terms of looking at specific parcels of land that are adjacent to, and I know the burden is on the applicant, and I hope we'll come to some resolution on that. Thanks.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Along the same lines, just want to echo some of those comments that I certainly value Magna / Unimotion as a community employer, and certainly in adopting the official plan tonight, I'm not looking to create additional burdens or challenges for the existing business, and it's good to hear. And I've had subsequent conversations with Mr. Ramuno, as well as met with representatives from Magna as well to discuss the issues that, again, we as a council can deal with this issue when and if an application comes before us, to ensure that the measures are put in place to be able to mitigate the potential challenges, as well as try and find solutions that enable both to coexist.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner.
Mr. Mayor, I was trying to find an email from the region before I spoke. So I don't believe that 1289 Wellington Street East went through the proper conversion process from employment to residential. And as the official plan has it as residential, I can't seem to just pull that out separately and vote against that. I have to vote for the whole, against the whole OP, which I find unfortunate. And to date, I haven't been able to find out from the region what that process was. I'm still waiting for their answer. So as far as I know, it still should be listed as employment. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. I just wanted to finish off saying that I do appreciate all the work staff has done with the OP over the last 4 years, and that, I think everybody did a really great job. And as far as me in the Leslie corridor area, I've been pretty vocal over that on our workshops over the years, even in the previous term. This is not a new thing for me. And I do look at this as a positive move forward. I think just the situation we're in, the climate that we're in with the situation with the affordable housing crisis that we're going through, an attainable housing crisis, and just not having enough homes and units, we have an opportunity here to be a part of that solution. So I do want to look at things as a positive way forward. And I felt that this location on Leslie would really lend itself to that opportunity to give people housing. Often I hear people at the door saying, my kids can't live in the old town that they had grown up in. And here's an opportunity where that can happen. And people are ready to put those shovels in quickly. And I just don't want to leave opportunities on the table if I don't have to. And that's why I'm being so advocate on this this part of town. Thanks.
Yeah. Councilor Gallo, second.
Thank you. Just one last question through you to Mr. Ramuno. You had mentioned that once the region comes back to us and may or may not make changes, you'll provide us with a report. Will that be an information report, or will that require a council approval?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, it will be a recommendation report. We'll be seeking council's direction as well. I mean, if you recall back in 2010, I mean, whenever we council adopts a new official plan, I mean, the region, there'll always be some modifications. A lot of times they're just minor editing. There may be some other changes that we may have missed, but we'll spell all those modifications out in a report to council, and we'll be seeking council's direction as to whether you agree with those modifications or not, and then we'll report back to regional staff before they do their report to regional council.
Councilor?
Okay, so just to confirm, it will require a council resolution. That's it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'll vote. Councilor Gilliland? That carries. Do you guys want to take the break? I know, but I'm just making sure. We said this last time. We didn't make it through. Bylaw number 13.2. Someone like to move this? Councilor Thompson, seconder. Councilor Kim, comments, questions? All the vote. That carries. Confirming bylaw. Would like to move that. Councillor Kim. Councillor Gardner. All those in favor? I can do this one by hand, right? Yeah. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Gallo, Councillor Kim, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone. Isn't there other ones?